channel. This is Mediaweek.
Hello, welcome to the program. Ahead, Bauer closes its 5th title since taking over ACP magazines. Are there any others in its sights? The post-Easter TV onslaught in the battle for ratings, and the media union warns about an assault on press freedom. But first, Fairfax is restructuring its company into 5 business divisions to find more efficiencies and drive revenues. It continues the major overhaul last year that moved the company's focus from print to digital to deal with the structural hit of consumers moving online. All the newspaper titles will be rolled into one new unit, Australian Publishing Media, with a new national sales team. The division will be headed by former Fairfax New Zealand CEO Alan Williams. Metro Media Chief Executive Jack Matthews and Regional Publishing Head Alan Brown will leave the company. Real estate business Domain will have its own division, while other digital businesses will be part of the Digital Ventures unit. Radio and New Zealand will remain separate divisions. There's a lot of detail here. We have with us our co-host James Manning, editor and publisher of Mediaweek, to take us through it. James, just looking through obviously these 5 divisions and the biggest changes in that publishing unit.
Sure, the now called APM, Australian Publishing Media. So that gets the Sydney Morning Herald and the Age, the big mastheads. They're still the real big drivers of the business. That's going to be sort of split into 4 divisions now. Alan Williams will be taking charge of that. Jack Matthews moving aside. Also out is Alan Brown. Alan Williams coming across from New Zealand, where he's been doing, seems to be a pretty good job running the business over there. Formerly in regional media here, so he's had sort of fingerprints all over the business, if you like. That's going to be the real crux of driving the company.
And the other divisions?
Yep. So we've got Domain, as you mentioned. Tony Blamey will be sort of in charge of that for the time being. He's the general manager of real estate. Includes they're very sort of profitable real estate. They've sort of lost a lot of stuff online, but they've still managed to hold on to some of that sort of digital space in real estate. Digital Ventures, their RSVP, the online dating business, which generates them a bit of revenue. Stays, an accommodation business. I think it's still growing. As you mentioned, Fairfax Radio will stay under Adam Lang. And they've got a temporary acting GM, I think, in Fairfax, New Zealand, until they get a replacement for Alan Williams.
And key to all of this too, this new national sales unit?
Yep, Ed Harrison, who we had on the show a couple of weeks ago talking about the move to Compact. He's been given the job of looking over all the sales teams now. So Sydney Morning Herald and The Age again, the Australian Financial Review, which in the past has been its own division. So that's coming in-house. The rural sort of holdings, something like 200 titles there. Newspapers, magazines, so a big portfolio, and all the display advertising in their digital properties.
All right, and this, we're trying to drive efficiencies and meet that challenge?
Yeah, it's just a continuing sort of, as they review their process, trying to get their costs right down, as they sort of merge from a print business to digital, trying best to hang on to the revenues from the print side of the business and turn them into sort of similar revenues on the digital side.
And what sorts of things have we been seeing Fairfax doing as part of this, restructure and transformation that we've seen since midway through last year? Yeah,
you mean like the digital, the paywall? They've just introduced that paywall for international readers. They'll be sort of monitoring that, seeing how that goes. That'll be introduced in Australia, we think around June, depending a little bit on how successful it is overseas. They've been doing things like downsizing their workplaces. Their Sydney building is still relatively new. They had 4 floors of offices there for all their different divisions. That's been compacted into 2. Half that building's now rented out to somebody else, or soon will be. Staff hot desk now. There's lockers in there for everything. So they've really crunched the numbers and sort of looking for a saving anywhere they can.
All right. Well, let's get the media buyer's view on this, and we're joined on the program by Nick Keenan, Head of Implementation Planning and Investment at Mediacom in Melbourne. Nick, great to see you. Yeah, firstly, obviously want to ask you about this new national sales team being set up by Fairfax. How is that going to affect media buyers like Mediacom?
Hi guys. Look, it's not going to affect us too much. I think, the order of the day for Fairfax is, again, getting leaner and meaner. And condensing all their assets into one strong sales force. And that actually is a good thing for advertisers, and in particularly us as agencies, because it allows us more and more to have one conversation with a media vendor when we're buying their audience on behalf of our clients. So, you're seeing a lot of this in the print space. and you're going to see more of it as the revenues in the print decline. And to James's point earlier, as they're trying to hang on to that as much as possible, and they try and grow their digital businesses as well. I think one interesting point is Alan Williams coming back in, who's very much a print person, and then you've got the 2IC Ed Harrison, who's very digital, and I think that's a really nice balance. And for me, when I saw the announcement today, that really stood out for me, that you're going to get 2 points of conversation, one very much traditional print and the other one digital, and I think that'll do them well.
And Nick, just give us a little insight on the sort of about Ed Harrison. How do you rate him as a sales leader, I guess, across all the divisions? And the challenge he's got, I guess, of they still get a lot of money out of those print advertising revenues. Can you see a way through that they'll be able to hang on to some of that money and put it into digital?
I think Fairfax, look, firstly on Ed, he's a very good operator. And I'm not just saying that so that, I get preferential treatment going forward. Ed is generally a good operator, and it wouldn't be just me getting up and saying that. So I'd start with that. In terms of are they going to be able to consolidate the print and the digital and generate more revenue? I mean, when you look at Fairfax in terms of agency money, they're back in print about 20%, and they're growing in digital. They're growing but sluggishly, between sort of 2 and 3%. So their sales team was very much set up to be digital centric, and I think that they're a little ahead of the curve, which this new structure has recognised, because agencies, surprisingly, a lot of them are still very siloed. So the all-encompassing sales team trying to sell the digital and print would come in and see an agency who would only want to siphon them off to the digital department, and then, if you want to talk about print, you've got to go to the other. So I think this gets more of a balance. So yes, I think they will be able to consolidate, and get themselves more on the briefs, combining both or the digital platforms and the print platforms.
Nick, we haven't got your view on The Age and the SMH going compact on weekdays. It's been over a month now. What's been the response from Mediacom to the changes?
Response overall from everyone has been very positive, because it's a much more commuter-friendly size. From an advertiser's point of view, there were the obvious concerns around less advertising centimetres, if you like, because there was about a 55% reduction in ad space if you were going to do a like-for-like comparison of a broadsheet full page versus a tabloid. And that just simply comes to the fact that a broadsheet full page was about 605 centimetres and a tabloid's 266. So I think once those hurdles were overcome in terms of getting some sort of efficiency there, not like-for-like by any stretch, but being able to have a conversation in terms of what we then could take to our clients. And I think on a case-by-case basis, that was a rational conversation. And so, advertisers like the fact that it's more contemporary. Advertisers like the fact that the product, it just looks and feels better. And I think advertisers also like the surety that it gives, that it's not going to probably grow circulation, but it certainly might stem the declines that we've been seeing. So it puts a bit of stability into the print audience, and that really is a very important thing in the current climate.
Nick, could it pull any advertisers in, maybe, who just weren't in the broadsheet space, that they like a compact page? I'm thinking maybe some retailers, supermarkets, advertising specials, I don't know. And then should Fairfax move quickly on their Saturday papers and just make everything compact?
Look, the first question there, did it pull any additional advertisers into print? I certainly haven't seen that, and I don't think so. Fairfax, in terms of some of the direct advertising that they take through their direct sales teams, might have seen some examples of that. Given that, again, you've got a more compact environment, which might be pleasing to some advertisers. They think there might be a circulation bounce, so maybe they came in. I generally don't know. If you look at the categories, in terms of each of the categories like retail, automotive, and how they've performed in newspapers, it's all evidence to the contrary, because they've taken, unfortunately, more and more money out. So that'd be my answer to the first question. I think your second one, just having a look at, in terms of the way that the paper's performed, overall pretty well.
In terms of the Australian, obviously still remaining broadsheet, are there any advantages, I guess, in having that now?
Look, in terms of the Australian, well, if you're the last one standing and that's a point of difference, then you could argue that that's a benefit. I think getting back to James's question on Saturday papers. Should they do it on the Saturday? I'm a believer that I would keep the Saturday because I think it's a different read. We talk about compact size and tabloid size because of this being commuter friendly. Whether you're on, and I'm in Melbourne, so I'll quote the tram. You're on the tram or the train or the bus. It's just easier to read. A broadsheet is not something that, unless you wanted to really annoy the passenger next to you, was very difficult. So getting to Saturday, it's not about the commuter transit. It's more about the weekend and setting up for the weekend and what to do on the weekend and also that relaxing read. So you can spread it out on the coffee table if you like, and I don't think there's the impetus to rush to a compact size.
Sorry, Nick. Yeah, continue.
No, and just on the Australian, I would say they've got a great niche in the marketplace in terms of the audience that they speak to. They've got it's a higher earning demographic. It's News Limited's version, in many ways of a national paper like the Australian Financial Review, although they are very different. But the Australian is increasingly coming in with more business and financial content. So, if it's a point of difference, and again, does that demographic commute on the tram, the train, and the bus? Perhaps they don't care. It's a broadsheet, so keep it that way. If consumers aren't feeding back that they'd like to see that change.
Just wanted to move to magazines as well. We've heard Bauer Australia has closed its 5th title since taking over ACP magazines last year. Fashion Monthly Madison's June edition is going to be the last. Nick, on this, we've seen now Grazia, Burke's Backyard, UFC, Good Food. Do you think that they'll review any other titles?
Look, I think that the answer is probably yes. Bauer's got a lot of publications in there, and the Australian marketplace has got a lot of publications. We still consume more magazines per capita than any other Western community. So, yes, I do think they're going to change. And I think that the recent closures that you just mentioned, Madison and Grazia, were to make way for launches like Elle. And that's not a new thing. I think there's a lot of focus in terms of the pressure on magazines from a revenue point of view. But if you have a look at the last readership audit, there's a number of examples in there where you've seen some increases in readership, and indeed, there are some examples in terms of circular or copy sales. So you've got to be careful not to lump them in with newspapers. And what I'd say in some of the closures that we're seeing is, look, again, an organisation under pressure in terms of the revenue that it used to take and what it's now taking, and so they are getting leaner and meaner in that sense. So you're going to see a bit of a cleaning of the stable. And that's closures are a natural attrition of that.
What are you hearing about the launch of Elle? Do you think that's going to be hard to fill up with ads for their first or second issue before you've got some circulation data?
Look. Firstly, with magazines, I think that they're really fighting to get their seat back at the table with the agencies that have and advertisers that have very much fallen in love with digital. And as great as digital is and as great as it's growing, there was a wonderful article the other day that said that you had more chance of surviving a plane crash than you do of actually clicking on a banner ad. I'd question some of the methodology they used to come up with that. But look, at the end of the day, you will see some advertisers start to really closely evaluate their media dollar more, as they should, because and some of that money that's gone away from magazines into digital might start to come back, particularly when you're launching a new magazine like Elle. Advertisers are always keen to get on a launch, because a launch in the marketplace with something as high profile as this one, you would expect to do well. So you don't need a consistent historical circulation. You'll get a lot of advertisers, should join that on trust that it's going to be promoted well. They're going to get great content. They're going to make a big song and dance about its launch, and it's going to be a new magazine. And I don't think that consumers are sick of magazines in any shape. They're just not buying as many, but they're still buying and are still, as a staple diet of their media consumption, magazines are still an important part of that.
Nick, it's great to have you on the show today. Lots more to ask you about as well. We're just going to take a very quick break here on Media Week. After that, the post-Easter TV onslaught. We'll get a preview of what to be watching out for.